Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nice to meet you at the lectures of Speaking 2 at the College of Distance Education, where we are going to discuss the contents of this course. As you can see, the course is called Better Speaking, which is a guide to improving your spoken English. The aim of this course is to make you able to understand how to become a better speaker. And in this course, actually, we are looking for you to become a more fluent speaker of English, and what are the skills you need for effective communication. And of course, in this course, we are going to cover 8 topics. These topics, number 1 is becoming a confident speaker. Number 2, fluency or accuracy. Number 3, finding the right words. Number 4, learning language in chunks. Number 5, showing where you are going. Number 6, keeping the listener interested. Number 7, being a supportive listener. And the last topic is going to be sounding natural. And in each one of these topics, of course, we will have some more discussion in order to understand the contents of this topic. So we start with the first topic, becoming a confident speaker. Inshallah, we will try to, actually for each lecture, we will try to cover at least 2 topics if time allows. So the first topic is becoming a confident speaker. And of course, this is the ambition of every learner of English, to become confident and to speak, naturally, without hesitation or without any problem. So the aim of this topic is to tell you how to gain confidence, how to become confident when you speak. Confidence is a very important element in learning to speak English, or any language, actually, not only English. Many learners worry that they are going to make a mistake, or that the people listening will not understand them. And this is natural. Even in Arabic, sometimes, if we don't have confidence, we cannot speak Arabic very well. So that's why the first element of becoming a better speaker is to gain this kind of confidence that every learner needs. How can you learn to relax when you want to speak English? Of course, you know that some students or some learners of English, when they start speaking, they become nervous, they are unable to speak, sometimes they are afraid of the people in front of them. So in this course, or in this topic in particular, we are going to tell you how to actually dismiss and get rid of this problem. How to relax when you want to speak English. First of all, let us have a look at this piece of real English taken from an interview with some tennis star called Goran Ivanisevic. This extract is taken from a kind of interview that was made a long time ago. This actually tennis player tried to speak using normal English the way he felt at that moment of speaking. After he had won the Wimbledon Tennis Championship. He actually is a champion of Wimbledon Tennis Championship. So of course, somebody who is happy, usually they are expressing themselves in some kind of normal way, sometimes making some kind of mistakes or problems when they speak. So have a look at this extract. This is actually exactly what Goran has said, with all the details exactly that he said. That means this is the extract that is taken from the mouth of the speaker. And I will try to speak it on his behalf. Listen to that. This was my dream all my life, and to serve for the match. Suddenly I have a match point out of nowhere. I came here, nobody even talked about me. And now I am holding this trophy. It is just this support today is like, I was 3 times in the final, but this is just unbelievable. This is too good. Okay, so this is actually the extract that is exactly said by the player, the tennis player. And as you can see from this extract, that his English is not completely perfect. And there are some mistakes, some pauses, and some even grammatical problems there in the text, as you can see, and some incomplete sentences. So if I ask, how does Goran feel about his win? Which words tell you this? And when you look at the extract, you will find that his feeling supposedly to be very happy. Because sometimes people, when they are very happy, say they cannot control themselves, they cannot express themselves. And he was so excited. And, you know, phrases like, this is too good, it is just unbelievable, you know, are indication of how happy he was. And the second question, look at the following words, sounds or phrases like, you know, this is, it is. Why do you think he keeps repeating them? He keeps repeating these words and phrases, and sometimes sounds, actually. As you can see from the extract here, there is and you know, this is, it is. It's not complete. These actually are very important elements in spoken English, and it is something natural. A lot of learners and speakers usually use it. Even the native speakers themselves, sometimes they use this kind of phrases. What are these phrases? When a spoken interview is written down, we can see that many of the sentences are not grammatically correct, and the speaker repeats words to give himself time to think about what he is saying. He also uses fellas, and that is exactly what we mean by you mean, you know, it is. Even in Arabic we have fellas. This is the term we use for these elements of spoken English. Fellas like you know, you see, or when you repeat the pronoun like I, you know, are not sometimes words. They don't have specific meaning, but sometimes they are noises. Like when you say, this is a noise. And even if you want to translate this, you can't. But why we use them? Actually, we use the fellas in order to give ourselves time to think about what to say. So this player, he used the fellas to give himself more time to think about what he's going to say next. You see? So this element of spoken English, fellas, are common, and they are used even by native speakers of English. So that is why you can use them, but not too much, in order to be understood and in order that the listeners are not getting fed up of your talk. Although the grammar in this extract is not always correct, as you have seen in the extract, there are many grammatical mistakes there, but we can understand the player's message easily. If a message is given confidently, the listener won't worry about any mistakes. So here it's a kind of offer for you, actually, to keep going. Even though you make mistakes when you speak, don't worry about that, because keep making mistakes in language. Even in our mother tongue, in Arabic, sometimes we make mistakes, so no problem. But the most important thing is that you have to check that the listener understands what you say. Even though you make some small or minor mistakes, no problem. You see, even you have some kind of grammatical errors in your spoken English, no problem. But the most important thing you have to check out is that the listeners or the people who are listening to you do understand what you say. So you can use these fellas sometimes in order also to give you time to think. Instead of making mistakes, you can say and start thinking for one moment or another, you see, in order to prepare what to say next. Summary here, how can you sound more confident? As we said, that being confident in speaking is a very important element, because without being confident, you can't be a good speaker. Usually you will be in trouble, you'll be, not relaxed and nervous, and that will make you actually use bad English or make some mistakes in your spoken English. How can you sound more confident? What can you do to gain this confidence? First of all, you have to practice often, as much as you can. So the more often you speak, the easier it becomes. English people say, practice makes perfect. So if you keep practicing all the time, you will find yourself more confident to speak. But if you are speaking very little, and there comes a time you are supposed to speak in front of people, of course, you will be nervous and shaking, maybe, unable to speak because you haven't trained yourself to be confident. So first of all, practice often. The more often you practice, the more often you speak, the easier it becomes. Try to think of people you can talk to in English. Any people around you. If you find people around you, you can have some kind of talks, conversation with them in order to practice. Or places in your own town where English is spoken a lot, like English club, or a group of people who are actually speaking once or twice a week. They have something like a club or something. You can go there and join them in order to practice speaking. Or sometimes you can find people online to speak with. And you know now technology is helping. So you can use some kind of app in your mobile phone where there are some people are talking. You can join them and talk. This is also a way to practice. And if you don't find people at all, you can even use AI. Nowadays, AI has developed a lot, and you can find ways to speak with AI model, any model you like ChatGPT, like, Gemini, Copilot, or anything. And there are even some apps nowadays in your mobile where actually they give you a chance to speak and they talk to you like normal people. You find that and try to keep practicing. So you need to put yourself in a position where you need to speak. All the time, I want to speak. You speak with whoever you find, real humans or even machine, no problem. Like, for example, joining a club or going to conversation class if you find it. It's better actually to find people around you to speak, real humans to speak to. But if you don't find, at least you try to get another alternative like technology, no problem. So this is the first element to sound more confident. Second element is relax and think about the message. Focus on the message. Don't focus on what you say, on your mistakes, because sometimes people are having phobia of speaking. So they are very cautious about what they say. No, relax. Speaking needs relaxation, to calm down and talk. And just think about the message. It is easy to become nervous if you only focus on grammar rules when you are speaking, because some people, they are focusing on grammar and rules because this is the way they were taught. Okay? So when they are focusing on that, usually they are actually making mistakes and they become nervous. No, don't do that. Try to relax and think about the message. I have a message. I want to give it to the people in front of me. But as you see from Goran's interview, the one that is extract that we just discussed, what you want to say is usually more important than how you say it. What you want to say is more important than how you say it. Don't care about the what. Don't care about the how. Care about the what. What you want to say is usually more important. I have something to give it to the people in front of me. How I say it, I don't care. Whatever way I find, I try to use it. So this is exactly the meaning of that. What you want to say is usually more important than how you say it. The key to relaxing. You want to relax? You want to calm down when you are speaking? The key to relaxing when you are speaking is to talk about something you find really interesting. When you are talking in some kind of conversation or public talk, try to get a topic that you really like, you are really interested in. Don't talk about something that is dry, something that you don't like, something that you find it difficult, because this way you are actually ruining your speaking experience. No, find something interesting, find something nice to you and to your audience. Speaking becomes easier experience when you have something in your mind. You have ideas in your mind. You want to say it, easy to talk then. But if you have no ideas in your mind, zero ideas, how can you talk? You cannot talk. Of course, it is a failure. You will not be able to speak at all. So that's why try to fill in your brain with some good ideas in order to talk and say something. And by this way, you are going to enjoy the conversation. The last element is to rehearse what you want to say. And the meaning of rehearse is to practice that before you do it in the real situation. Usually people know the word prova, which is an Italian word. The English word is rehearse. It's like prova, right? You have to rehearse what you want to say before doing any kind, like, for example, if you have like a public talk, if you have a presentation, for example, you have to do some kind of rehearsal, okay? You do this rehearsal with anyone or even with yourself. So one of the good elements or one of the good points that will help you to become more confident in speaking is to rehearse what you want to say. If you are very nervous, try to practice saying what you want to say to yourself a few times, or you can say it with some other people, your family even. You have a topic, you want to say it next day in school and college and meeting, you know, you have to practice that, rehearse that with some people around you, or even with yourself in front of a mirror. No problem. The most important thing is that you practice that, you rehearse that. And don't forget about planning. Also, that means this topic you are going to talk about, try to plan it. Don't just talk randomly. Make it like points. First point is this, second point is this, third point is this, fourth point is this, and so on, until you finish. This is my last point. Have it in your mind here or in a piece of paper and try to, you know, go over it when you are talking, so that this way you are going to plan your talk. So that is why planning and rehearsal can make your speaking more confident. Planning and rehearsal can make your speaking more confident. So you will look so confident. And try it, of course. You will find it really, really helping. Don't say it for the first time, but when you say it for the second time, third time, fourth time, of course you'll find yourself more confident to speak. And remember, however, that you need to think about the person who's listening to you. What are they likely to say in response? Be careful about your listeners. Do they understand what you say? Are they happy with your talk? Do they enjoy your talk or not? And look at their faces, their body language, their facial expressions, and try to act accordingly. If you are trying to follow this, if you try to follow these steps, of course, inshallah, you will be able to be confident in speaking. And of course, your speaking experience will be very, very successful, inshallah. This is the end of this topic. Thank you. Hello, guys, again. This is the second topic of better speaking. And as I told you before, that in one lecture, inshallah, we'll try to cover 2 topics if time allows. So this is the second topic of better speaking. The title of this topic is Fluency and Accuracy. What's the meaning of fluency and what's the meaning of accuracy? I think you have maybe heard about this word. Fluency is coming from the word fluent, means being able to speak smoothly without any hesitation, without any problem. And accuracy, it's coming from the word accurate, means to speak perfectly without errors and mistakes. What's the meaning of that in speaking? Speaking English fluently is the goal for many learners of English, and even you, each one of you, of course, want to speak fluently, to speak like Arabic, to speak like native speakers, to speak without stopping. This is actually the goal of many learners of English. Fluency means being able to communicate your ideas without having to stop and think too much about what you are saying. You know, the way we are doing with our mother tongue, with Arabic, for example, sometimes we are not thinking too much about what we are saying because we have the tools for that. And we need you to be able to be fluent in English as well. So what can you do to achieve this level of English? But some learners think, however, some learners or many learners also, they have the goal of spoken accuracy, to speak perfectly without any errors or mistakes. So speaking accurately means that you speak without errors of grammar and vocabulary, even pronunciation, which is more important but more difficult for you, because usually if you start from the difficult one, you will not be able to speak fluently, because you know, in some schools they depend on that. You know, in our schools, unfortunately, they start usually with accuracy rather than fluency. And that's why we say here, it might depend on how you have learned English in the past. Remember and try to recall your days in schools, in primary school, in secondary school. In Yemen, usually, they focus on accuracy. They focus on rules. They focus on vocabulary. But they don't focus on fluency. That's why they don't give you a chance to speak, but they give you exams only. They ask you about grammar rules, about vocabulary, about how to write. But usually they have very, very limited occasions where they ask you to speak up in front of your friends or in front of the teachers or some kind of public talk. And that is our problem in the country. So this is not the problem in Yemen, in Arab countries, but even in some EFL countries. What I mean by EFL, that means English as a foreign language, because English is sometimes spoken as a foreign language, sometimes as a second language, and of course sometimes as a native language, like in Britain and America and some other countries. Foreign language almost everywhere. one of the countries that use English as a foreign language is China, which is a big country, and they need English in order to actually do their business. So here we have a good example from China. Some lady is talking about her experience. And of course, we will try to make a comparison between her experience and your experience here in Yemen. Look at the extract that she said. She said, I have learned English for almost 15 years. I have no problem with reading and listening, but speaking has always been a problem for me because when I was at school, we always focused on grammar, vocabulary, and exams. Now I really want to improve my spoken English to have, or to a new level, to achieve that freedom in speaking in the near future. I will try anything to help myself or to help me achieve this. As you can see from this extract, the Chinese lady, she learned English for 15 years. Like in Yemen also, we have 3 years in primary school, or more than 3 years, I think. In primary school, sometimes they're 5 years. In secondary school, 3 years, almost like 8 years or more. And even sometimes you study it in college, but nevertheless, our English is not that good. We spend a lot of years using or learning English, but we actually are unable to speak very well because of this problem. What's the problem? What does Jinping think is the cause of the problem? And do you agree? She said that the cause of the problem, because they were focusing on grammar, vocabulary, and exams. And I think we have the same problem here in Yemen. They usually focus on that, on grammar, on vocabulary, and on exams. But there is no focus on communication. There is no focus on conversation. And that is exactly the same situation that we have in this country. Do you have the same problem? I think yes, we have the same problem. And that is why you find a lot of people, a lot of learners of English, they spend years studying English, yet they are not able to speak because the way they were taught was not actually correct. They were focusing on just accuracy. They were not focusing on fluency. So which is more important? Okay, now we need to know, and we need to see ourselves. Do we have enough of fluency or enough of accuracy, or we don't have enough of both? It differs from one person to another. We cannot say that you have fluency or not. You yourself can say that, enough fluency or enough accuracy. But we will analyze the situation of this Chinese lady. If, like Jinping, you have a very strong focus on accuracy, on getting the grammar and vocabulary correct, and I think this is the situation in our schools in Yemen, you may find that you worry about making mistakes. And I have seen through my experience in teaching in the colleges in Yemen that a lot of students and learners of English, they are afraid of making mistakes. They worry about making mistakes. And that is why sometimes they don't want to speak, because they are afraid of making mistakes. They are shy to make a mistake. And this can make you shy about speaking in English. And as a result, your spoken fluency might not improve. And that's why a lot of learners in Yemen, they are not able to speak because of this. They are focusing on grammar, vocabulary, exams, no focus on conversation, no focus on talk. And that is why you will find them unable to speak, even though they have enough vocabulary, even though they have good grammar, but their ability to speak is very limited. So this means that although you know English well, you might not be able to have a conversation. And that's why you will find a lot of learners, they cannot make a conversation with somebody. They are afraid to go into a conversation with some people, because even though they have the tools, they have the vocabulary, they have the grammar, but because they are not practicing fluency. But if you are a different person, sometimes on the other hand, you may be someone who really likes to talk. Because there are some, especially those learners who are interested in English, they want to speak a lot. They are talking, but even motivated by themselves, not by school or teacher. No, by themselves. You will find them, they are actually, they like to talk. They want to speak with people. Once they find some people, they try to speak with them. And they are willing to try out language, even though they make mistakes. Sometimes, if you are this kind of person, of course, your fluency is going to be good. So on the other hand, you may be someone who really likes to talk and you are willing to try out language, even though you make mistakes. This can help you make you sound very fluent, because if you want to be fluent in English, you have to keep practicing it. You have to keep using it, speaking it. Even though you make mistakes, no problem. The most important thing is that you keep talking. Mistakes are normal. Everybody makes mistakes, but you have to be careful that people understand what you say. Not too big mistakes that people misunderstand you. But if you just make minor mistakes, no problem, keep going. However, if you make too many mistakes, which you do not stop to correct, you can find that it's difficult to make others understand your ideas, of course. So that's why I'm not encouraging you to make mistakes. No, try to use English with less mistakes as much as you can. But of course, some minor mistakes, no problem, acceptable. Because if you are actually afraid of making mistakes and don't want to speak, this is the problem. But you make mistakes, but be careful that these mistakes do not actually stop people from understanding you. They should understand you. Your message must be clear to them. If this is the case, then you can go and keep talking this way. So speaking a language well requires both fluency and accuracy. Both of them are very important. We need both of them. So how can we make sure that we develop both fluency as well as accuracy? First of all, you have to identify your learning style, how you were taught. What kind of learner are you? A person who prefers fluency and keeps talking even though making mistakes, or a person who's thinking too much about details and about grammar, rules, and vocabulary only? Think about situation in which you have used English and how you felt about making mistakes. If you are afraid of making mistakes, these mistakes are actually your problem. You feel that I cannot speak because I'm afraid of making mistakes. Here you have a problem. Is being correct when you speak the most important thing for you? Some people think about being correct all the time. I want to be perfect. You know, speaking is not like writing. In speaking, you can make mistakes, no problem. But not too many mistakes that people misunderstand or don't understand you. So is being correct when you speak the most important thing for you? Or do you always take risks trying out new language even though it might not be correct? It depends on how are you in your learning style. What kind of person are you? You focus on fluency or you focus on accuracy? If you are this or that, then you can develop what is missing. The first step towards improving your spoken English is recognizing what's easy for you. Start with the easy one and then working on what's difficult. For example, if it's easy for you to be fluent, so be fluent first of all. And then you go for accuracy and correct yourself, correct your mistakes, and try to produce perfect English. And that is why here you have to decide for yourself and identify your learning style. So it depends from one person to another. The second thing is focus on one area at a time. Don't try to learn everything. For example, when you speak English, do you notice any mistakes you make quite often? What kind of mistakes? Maybe you make mistakes with tenses, for example, perfect tenses, which are difficult for some Arab learners, or with question forms. Or do you sound slow? For example, I find myself slow. I'm not able to speak fast, as if you are always searching for words or correct grammar. Then look at yourself. What's my problem? And then try to solve this problem step by step, one by one. So next time you speak with your friends, for example, try to work on the problem. You have notes. If it is fluency problem, try to focus on making sure your friend understands what you said, not on avoiding mistakes. If you have a problem with tenses, try to correct yourself only when you make a tense error. Don't think about other mistakes. You cannot correct all mistakes. For example, I'm trying to think about tenses. I have problems in tenses. I try to correct the mistakes of tenses. Here, you will be focusing on one area at a time, because you cannot change everything altogether just in one time. If you have problem with tenses, for example, try to correct yourself only when you make mistakes in tenses. Don't think about other mistakes. By choosing an area to work on, you can help yourself overcome these problems. So step by step, take one area at a time and focus on that. Correct yourself, train yourself, practice, and then you'll find yourself actually doing a great job. The last thing here is vary your practice. Vary your practice. Vary here means change. Change your practice. Don't just practice the same thing all the time. Don't use the same topics. Don't speak with the same people. No, try to change. If you are a member of an English club or learner or learning circle, for example, make sure that you vary the types of activities you do so that you get practice both in fluency and accuracy. Discussions are good fluency activities as long as you don't you don't stop each time a mistake is made. So also try to vary your topics. Don't talk about the same topic. Try to talk about some other topics so that you have to use different kinds of vocabulary. Try to find people online, for example, and try to speak with different kinds of people because sometimes the accent is different. So when you are varying this kind of practice, you will find yourself actually improving a lot. And I think this is the last point here in the second topic of fluency and accuracy. I hope you understand what I've said. Thank you so much for listening.